Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jan Yashoda Nandana Braja Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Kalasanti, Radha Kalasanti Sri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Kalashandaji ki jai. Shri the Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Then we'll sing on, we'll translate or speak the two verses on the screen here. So if we could all together say the Sanskrit and the English translation, please. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devyam sarasvatim vedasyam tato jayam yudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer the respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta preyasha abreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome in the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as a revocable fact. Okay, 3:28:19. So today, the topic for today will be meditation on the personal form of the Lord. So we're going to go to 3:19 where we'll reread Srila Prabhupada's, we'll do the translation and then read Srila Prabhupada's purport, and then we're going to go through the text 1 through 19 because they really do such a good job of helping this theme of meditating on the Lord. So we are on 3:28:19. Okay. Stititam Rajanantam Asinam. Stititam Rajanantam Asinam. Sayanam Vagahusayam. Sayanam Vaguhasyayam. Prekshanani hitam dayatech. Prekshanani hitam dayatech. Chudya bhavane chetasya. Chudya bhavane chetasya. Stititam Rajadan Masinam. Sayanam Vaguhasayam. Prekshanahiye hitam dayatech. Chudya bhavane chetasya. Please go ahead and chant. Stititam Brajatam Asinam. Sayanam Baguhasayam. Dayayat Chudya Bhavane Chetasya. Anybody else? Stititam Rajatam Asinam. Sayanamba guhasyayam Preksinaya hitam dayat Juda bhavanete tasya. Word for word, together please. Stitam, standing, rajatam, moving, asinam, sitting, sayanam, lying down, va, or, guya asayam, the Lord dwelling in the heart, prechachina, beautiful, ititam, pastimes, dehayet, visualize, sudai bhavanaya, pure, chetasya, by the mind. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Thus, always merged in devotional service, the yogi visualizes the Lord standing, moving, lying down, or sitting within him. For the pastimes of the Supreme Lord are always beautiful and attractive. Before I go to purport, let's talk about a little bit what's going on there. We've been reading regularly the 8th chapter of Canto 1. So it's been a little while since we've been reading on this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is Lord Kapilya's instructions to Devahuti, right? Is Kapilya just a normal living entity, a normal jiva soul? No. Who is he? He's an incarnation of Krishna, and his mother, Devahuti, is asking him, inquiring from him to reveal the transcendental absolute truth. See, his father, Kardama Muni, he took off, but not for any bad reason. He was a wonderful father, a wonderful husband, and after having his son, Lord Kapilya, he actually asked for his permission to leave. He said, "Now may I go to the forest and become a renunciate?" And Lord Kapilya says, "Yes, go ahead." And so Devahuti, being there by herself, says, "Will you please instruct me?" And so this is Lord Kapilya's instructions. Okay, purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The process of meditating on the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within oneself and the process of chanting the glories and the pastimes of the Lord are the same. The only difference is that hearing and fixing the mind on the pastimes of the Lord is easier than visualizing the form of the Lord within one's heart, because as soon as one begins to think of the Lord, especially in this age, the mind becomes disturbed, and due to so much agitation, the process of seeing the Lord within the mind is interrupted. When there is sound vibrating, praising the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, however, one is forced to hear. That hearing process enters into the mind, and the practice of yoga is automatically performed. For example, even a child can hear and derive the benefit from the Bhagavatam that describes the Lord as He is going to the pasturing ground with His cows and friends. Hearing includes applying the mind. In this age of Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya has recommended that one should always engage in chanting and hearing Bhagavad Gita. The Lord also says that the Mahatmas, or great souls, always engage in the process of chanting the glories of the Lord, and just by hearing others derive the same benefit. Yoga necessitates meditation on the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, whether He is standing, moving, lying down, etc. So, on this topic of meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the personal form of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada has really emphasized in this purport 3 processes by which we can do that, right? Hearing, chanting, and remembering the Lord. We can understand that of these all, the king is hearing. Srila Prabhupada's mood was very much in line with encouraging people to hear about the glories of the Lord. So much so that he put such an emphasis on the literatures that he and the Pasacharyas have written. He immediately translated the three cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, and then when he came here, he understood that that there was no good translation of Bhagavad Gita, right? Or no, excuse me, I should say there was no translation of Bhagavad Gita giving what Krishna says. Instead, people were giving their own interpretations, right? So Srila Prabhupada would get up before 1 o'clock after going to bed at 10, 11 o'clock, only getting a couple hours of sleep. And he would write these literatures because he was so much understanding that hearing is the king of how to understand the form of Krishna. But Nanda Braja, when we read, we're reading. Are we hearing? Yes. Hearing is a form, reading, is a form of hearing. And when we hear and read Srila Prabhupada's books, we're hearing from him directly about the pastimes and the glories of Krishna. So then, once we hear the glories of Krishna from the pastimes, from the literatures of the previous acharyas, or hearing from their lectures, then we ourselves should take up the opportunity to chant, to speak those same words that we heard. So we might get an opportunity throughout the day that something comes up where we can talk about Krishna, and we should be very joyous to take up this opportunity, right? See, if we hear attentively and in the right mood or the right attitude, when we hear from the great acharyas, we can understand that this is no normal thing. They are speaking to us directly. However, if we take the attitude of reading whimsically or inattentively, then we tend to make this a mundane thing. We tend to make the reading of these literatures a mundane thing. And because Krishna is so kind, that he reciprocates by however we are moving towards him. So if we take this as a mundane thing and we take it as a whimsical thing, then that's what we get in return. But if we take a moment to give great attention and respect to these words that we're hearing, then Krishna reciprocates that way. And the amazing thing is that when Krishna reciprocates, it's of a very personal gift, right? Krishna gives us an opportunity to hear, and he'll give in the heart to each one of us this gift. And when we have that gift, we can be looking for a way to share it also. And so when we go throughout our day, for instance, here, we hear in the morning of Srimad Bhagavatam, and if we're listening attentively, we can be hearing for the gifts that each Krishna has for each and one of us. And throughout the day, we can meditate on that gift or that thing that's being touched in our heart. And then we'll be given an opportunity to be able to speak it to others. And when we speak it, we hear it and we speak it, becomes more grounded in our heart. Srila Prabhupada mentions that in the Nectar of Instruction, that the desire to speak is so strong in the human, right? Not just in the human, actually it's so strong in every living entity. We can hear the birds and the different animals speaking in such a way that they're asking questions and answering questions. But the human life is meant for inquiring into the absolute truth. So the tongue can speak about mundane subjects, or it can speak about transcendental subjects. And so when we get this opportunity to use the tongue in a way for Krishna, then it becomes a very, very great opportunity and really can purify our heart and our mind. This is what this process is doing. It's purifying the mind and our heart and our intelligence. So by chanting and reading, our intelligence becomes purified to understand what the goal of life is, right? Right now, in our hearts and our mind, is the goal of life is to sense gratification, or on the bodily platform. How do I use this vessel who is me to get this pleasure? But through hearing from the previous acharyas, we start to understand and purify the intelligence that actually the goal of life is to gratify Krishna's senses, right? So once we do that and we have this intelligence set, then the mind can start to help us by saying yes or no on how to meet that goal. And so through this process of purifying our intelligence, we start to use the mind for the purpose of the goal of life. And it will become flickering, right? It will flicker back and forth, and it will become distracted in so many ways. But our job is to continually to chant and hear the glories of the Lord, because it starts to bring us back to that north. It starts to bring us back to that center. What is our goal in life? Okay, we've talked about hearing, we've talked about chanting, and these two processes are purifying the mind, purifying the intelligence and purifying the mind. And then we have the opportunity to remember Krishna. So then we're going throughout our day, and right now we're remembering so often about what we have to do, right? Or a conversation maybe we had or that we need to have, right? It's pretty natural that we're thinking about the past or the future and how we're going to adjust it in a way to benefit us mostly, right? But when we purify the intelligence and the mind, then the understanding that Krishna is the supreme controller starts to really set in the heart, and we have the freedom to start to think more deeply about Krishna. We start to be able to, some people will call it multitasking. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but maybe we're performing our duties, but we're thinking about Krishna, right? Srila Prabhupada gives a really good example of this. He says that the wife who, or the husband, either one, who has a lover outside of their marriage, they're doing everything so nicely because they don't want to just create a disturbance in the family, in the home. But they're always thinking about the time that they get to go away and meet the lover. So similarly, when we're at work and when we're doing our services, right, we can be very diligent in how we do our job, but we're always thinking about Krishna and when that next opportunity we get to go and see him is. So what I'd like to do is go through texts 1 through 19 so we can hear this wonderful story, this wonderful instructions by Kapilya. And in it, we'll also hear the ways he's explaining about how to purify the mind and how to hear about Krishna. And then there'll be some verses where we can really dive deep in a meditation of Krishna's personal form, and we can see if we can really let it penetrate our heart, and we can take it throughout the day in remembering Krishna. Okay, Drista, would you mind starting us with text 1, and would you read 3 verses, please?
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear mother, O daughter of the king, now I shall explain to you the system of yoga, the object of which is to concentrate the mind. By practicing this system, one can become joyful and progressively advance towards the path of the absolute truth." Text 2. One should execute his prescribed duties to the best of his ability and avoid performing duties not allotted to him. One should be satisfied with as much gain as he achieves by the grace of the Lord, and one should worship the lotus feet of a spiritual master. One should cease performing conventional religious practices and should be attracted to those which lead to salvation. One should eat very frugally and should always remain secluded so that he can achieve the highest perfection of life.
Hare Krishna. Okay. One should practice non-violence and truthfulness, should avoid thieving, and be satisfied with possessing as much as he needs for his maintenance. He should abstain from sex life, performing austerity, be clean, study the Vedas, and worship the supreme form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
1 second here. In the purport, if you wouldn't mind going to the purport and going to the last sentence here. Last 2 sentences. Primarita, would you mind reading those 2 sentences?
Therefore, reading standard scriptures is necessary for executing yoga. Practicing yoga without reading the standard literatures is simply a waste of time.
Simply a waste of time. Srila Prabhupada says, practicing yoga without reading the standard literatures is simply a waste of time. Makes it very clear, right? That these literatures are so important, that hearing about Krishna is so important because it's going to give us the purified intelligence to understand the purpose of yoga. Okay, text 5, please.
One must observe silence, acquire steadiness by practicing different yogic postures, control the breathing of the vital air, withdraw the senses from the sense objects, and thus concentrate the mind on the heart. Fixing the vital air and the mind in one of the 6 circles of vital air circulation within the body, thus concentrating one's mind on the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called samadhi, or samadhana of the mind.
Srila Prabhupada mentions in this purport that you'll see it says Vaikuntha Loka in the, can you go to the Sanskrit real quick? Vaikuntha Lila, Vaikuntha Lila. So the process of samadhi is to start to understand Vaikuntha Lila or Krishna Lila. Very interesting. Okay, I think we're on 7.
By these processes, or any other true process, one must control the contaminated, unbridled mind, which is always attracted by material enjoyment, and thus fix himself in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. After controlling one's mind in sitting postures, one should spread a seat in a secluded and sanctified place, sit there in an easy posture, keeping the body erect, and practice breath control. The yogi should clear the passage of vital air by breathing in the following manner. First, he should inhale very deeply, then hold the breath in, and finally exhale. Or reversing the process, the yogi can first exhale, then hold the breath outside, and finally inhale. This is done so that the mind may become steady and free from external disturbances.
So, does this sound like an easy process? Huh? Sounds pretty easy to control the inhale. It doesn't sound. What do you guys think? Yeah, pretty easily, right? So Srila Prabhupada says that in the purport that the same the process of chanting Hare Krishna and the controlling of the breathing is the same, and that so I've experienced and have people explain when you're chanting nicely, you can see that your breathing and your rhythm by chanting Hare Krishna, by doing your japa, becomes very nice. You can see that it becomes like a yoga of the breath when you're chanting japa nicely. Okay, number 10, please.
The yogis who practice such breathing exercises are very soon freed from all mental disturbances, just as gold, when put into fire and fanned with air, becomes free from all impurities. By practicing the process of pranayam, one can eradicate the contamination of his physiological condition, and by concentrating the mind, one can become free from all sinful activities. By restraining the senses, one can free himself from material association, and by meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can become free from the 3 modes of material attachment.
Can we, Trista, will you go to the last, the purport and go to the last sentence there? Last 2 sentences. Last sentence.
One has to purify his physiological condition by concentration and by restraint of the senses. Then he can fix his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is called samadhi.
Okay, number 12.
Text 13. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has a cheerful lotus-like countenance with ruddy eyes like the interior of a lotus, and a swarthy body like the petals of a blue lotus. He bears a conch, discus, and a mace in 3 of his hands.
Okay, so here's the verses that are going to start to explain or to talk about the form of the Lord. So if we can take a couple deep breaths, maybe. How about one more? And we're going to get a great opportunity to hear this description of the Lord. And we're going to be able to purify our minds by hearing this description. And hopefully it will give us something that we can take throughout the day of this beautiful description of the Lord. So really focus and hear from Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada's translations this form of the Lord. Okay, can you read 12 again, and then we'll continue on for the next few ones? Who, creep up Maya Prabhu? Huh? 13, excuse me, yes.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead has a cheerful, lotus-like countenance with ruddy eyes, like the interior of a lotus, and a swarthy body like the petals of a blue lotus. He bears a conch, discus, and mace in 3 of his hands.
His loins are covered by a shining cloth, yellowish like the filaments of a lotus. On his breath he bears the mark of Srivatsa, a curl of white hair. The brilliant Kaustubha gem is suspended from his neck.
Mm.
He also wears around his neck a garland of attractive sylvane flowers, and a swarm of bees intoxicated by its delicious fragrance hums around the garland. He is further superbly adorned with a pearl necklace and a crown and a pair of armlets, bracelets, and ankles.
His loins and hips encircled by a girdle. He stands on the lotus of his devotee's heart. He is most charming to look at, and his serene aspect gladdens the eyes and souls of the devotees who behold him. The Lord is eternally beautiful, and he is worshipable by all the inhabitants of every planet. He is ever youthful and always eager to bestow his blessings upon his devotees. The glory of the Lord is always worth singing, for his glories enhance the glories of his devotees. One should therefore meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and upon his devotees. One should meditate on the eternal form of the Lord until the mind becomes fixed.
Thus, always merged in devotional service, the yogi visualizes the Lord standing, moving, lying down, and sitting within him. For the pastimes of the Supreme Lord are always beautiful and attractive. Hare Krishna. So we talked about hearing, chanting, and remembering. We talked about this great mood that Srila Prabhupada had of sharing these literatures because they get us to hear about the Supreme Lord. They get how can we understand somebody so magnanimous until we hear about them, right? There's so many wonderful personalities that we never even get an opportunity to hear their pastime activities and their different beauties and stuff. So we take the opportunity to hear from the previous acharyas because they're giving us an opportunity to understand Krishna by hearing from them. And then we can also have the opportunity to chant them. We can share this knowledge that Srila Prabhupada and the past acharyas are giving us. And then our mind starts to become fixed, and we start to have the opportunity to remember Krishna throughout our day more and more and more. And our mind becomes purified and fixed on the supreme lotus feet of Krishna. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Yes, Mataji.
What does it mean when you say Krishna, when Srila Prabhupada says Krishna has a lotus-like countenance.
Countenance?
Countenance.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Which verse was it? Oh, 13. Can you look on the thing and look up what the word means? Define it? Let's see. Please. The facial expression? A person's face or facial, lotus-like facial expression of Krishna's ruby eyes. Is that okay?
Yeah. It's hard to imagine.
This is the wonderful process point too, is that we can contemplate these things. If we're really hearing attentively and trying to get the most out of it, say, instead of just reading and going, okay, we go, wait a minute, what does that mean? And then we can dive deeper in it, and it's amazing sometimes. I don't know if you guys have known, actually I remember Kripa Maya Prabhu talking about Krishna miracles, are talking about that we start to contemplate these things deeply, and then all of a sudden we get answers. All of a sudden that somebody will say something about Krishna's lotus face in the next couple days, and you'll be like, oh, maybe, hopefully. Is that okay? Or yeah. Any other comments on the lotus-like face of Krishna? Thoughts? The swarthy body, like let's look at what does swarthy mean. Dark. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada talks about in the purport about it, the color of Krishna. I appreciate this. You guys were really listening attentively, because these words popping out, going, what does these mean? Yeah, right? We're very fortunate. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the class. Comment and then also question. I really appreciate the class, by the way. I felt like it was really nice, really like things to meditate on throughout the day. Thank you. About the lotus-like countenance with ruddy eyes, I think the lotus-like countenance is referring to the eyes. I remember hearing that Krishna's eyes are referred to like lotus, like buds of lotus flowers. So I think the countenance is kind of referring to the eyes part of Krishna, like the facial expression of his eyes. So, I don't know. And then question, can you go to the text 19, please? Yeah. No, here, just here. So I remember seeing that, like, I think in Nectar Devotion, where Prabhupada kind of distinguishes between the yogi, the bhakta, and the jnani, almost as like they are separate from each other. But here it seems like the yogi is engaged in devotional service. It seems like maybe the yogi is also kind of a bhakta. Are they like...
So the Bhagavad Gita explains that there's these different yoga processes, and the end result of these other yoga processes besides bhakti yoga is actually the realization that bhakti yoga is the right yoga. So the goal of jnana is to understand bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada has given us this great boon by like just skipping us over all of these other yoga systems and stuff, and we can just go right to bhakti, and automatically within it is jnana and hatha, all these different yoga processes, jnana yoga and stuff. So that's what do you think?
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree with that. One other thing. I also remembered Krishna saying in the Bhagavad Gita that we should equip ourselves with the armor of yoga. So I think that having knowledge of these other yoga systems is helpful, like to fall back on. Like if sometimes we cannot, like our body is in pain and we cannot chant properly, if we know some of these yogic postures that can help us, with our back pain, then we can come back into devotional service nicely. So I kind of think I definitely agree with you that a lot of these processes they're held to realize that bhakti is the highest. But I think that also we should remember this, I feel that what Krishna says there is also important to have knowledge of the other yoga processes.
Yeah. I mean, Krishna doesn't speak anything that's not transcendental. So, I mean, he's giving it and it also can help us to understand where we're at. I mean, it's really helpful to understand if you're performing karma yoga. Why? Not to like beat yourself up, but to understand that that's kind of where I'm at. I understand that I have these desires for some fruit of things, but at least let me step up to karma yoga. Let me start to give the fruits of the results up to Krishna. And so, yeah, or like you said, Ayurveda, these different ways of healing the body and stuff. Yeah, very nice. Hare Krishna. Yes, go Luka number. Oh, Premamrita.
Just a quick comment is that, I mean, we are called bhakti yogis also. Like it is, we are also called yogi. It's like karma yogi, jnana yogi, bhakti yogi. It's all yoga.
Yeah, the thing is, everything is in with bhakti. There's nothing that's missing in bhakti yoga. So it's full, it's complete. And then it's like if you, like Srila Prabhupada says, if you have $1 million, $100,000 is in there. So we have hatha yoga, we have these different yoga systems, dhyana yoga, jnana yoga, karma yoga, and stuff like that. They're all with them. But we as bhaktas are really focusing on the goal and then letting all those other things fall into place to a certain degree, And we can also, through bhakti yoga, anyways. Yeah. Good point.
Hare Krishna. Actually, Nanda Braj Prabhu snatched the words from my mouth. That's what I wanted to say. So if you analyze in Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, there is Karma Yoga. Then 4th chapter is Jnana Yoga. So that is where in the final last concluding verse, Krishna is giving the verse that you quoted, Uttishta Uttishta Bharata Amvit Yoga. So, and then 6th chapter there is Dhyana Yoga. And finally, 7th onwards there is Bhakti Yoga. So it's a yoga ladder that we have heard about, right? So Prabhupada, if you carefully look at Prabhupada's purport, Prabhupada always translates all the different types of yogas into Bhakti Yoga. So it's like, let's say for an example, mathematics subject, it could be studied at different levels, but it's the same subject, right? So every particular type of yoga culminates finally into Bhakti Yoga. That's what it means. So there particularly Krishna is stressing for those who are into Jnana Yoga, trying to understand the difference between matter and spirit.
I'm trying to find it, but there's also a verse that talks about religion, and Srila Prabhupada in the purport talks about that how religion is not made for sense gratification or economic development. So as bhakti yoga, we use religion as that platform to connect with Krishna. And there might be these gains that we get, but we're not focusing on them. Our focusing is more on how do we please Krishna, and these things come. So if you have to take some kind of yoga process to get right so that your service to Krishna is the best, or so you can put yourself in the best position to serve Krishna nicely or to do your service, then that's bhakti, right? It's the goal. Our principle is our goal is to serve the devotees of Krishna with all of our hearts. And so we're looking at what can I use? The bhakta is very liberal-minded. We're not cripple-minded. The Mahatma is very liberal-minded, that they're looking at every energy of the Lord. How can I use this for His service? So yeah. Right? Hare Krishna. Any other comments? Yes, Prabhu.
I just wanted to comment on the lotus-like countenance. I think that's a beautiful meditation. And reminds me of a verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says in the 5th chapter, one who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by the water. So that, when you think about lotus countenance, it makes us meditate on what are the qualities of a lotus flower. And one of the qualities, as mentioned here in the Bhagavad Gita, is that a lotus leaf is untouched by the water.
Mm.
So in the same way, Krishna's countenance, his expression, is untouched by any material energy or any material qualities. Like when you look at my face, you could probably see all kinds of, material modes of nature are simmering underneath the skin, But with Krishna, when we look at, Radhika Lachanji, their faces are free from all tinge of material qualities.
Wonderful. Okay, it is 8:30. I think we can end on that meditation, right? On the lotus-like face of Kalashanjaji Jai. Yes, I'll just end with this. Our attentiveness, our intention, if we are very strong in this, then we can hear these words in a proper attitude, and they will penetrate the heart, and they will give us a meditation and purify us throughout the day. So please, at all of these Srimad Bhagavatam classes that you come to, do your best to be attentive. Put away the phones. I understand some people are using their phones for the proper use and stuff like that. So, but put away the thoughts of the past or the future, and boom, get absorbed into the Srila Prabhupada speaking Srimad Bhagavatam and like Lord Kapilya's instructions to us. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaura Pramanande Hari Hari Bo.